way?
Leg 3 of
Does that
our
make me in your way?
leg 3 of our updates on our grade reconfiguration task forces. So this is our middle school task force, and I think since we have more people, I'll let Heather kind of handle the introduction.
All right. So we have, fortunate to have 2 parents join us from our task force, fantastic parents who've had the opportunity also to travel with us to a national middle school conference. So Susan Lampy is here, and she represents the Timbercrest, Bear Creek, Woodville pathway. Go ahead and tell them about how many kids you have and at what schools.
Oh, I have 4 kids. I have 2 at Bear Creek and 2 at Timbercrest.
And then Jackie Monks has kids at Maywood Hills and represents the Bothell feeder pattern. Go ahead and share.
I have 4 kids. 3 are in 1st grade, and one is in 4th grade this year. So yeah,
Wow.
I like to say that's fun. Wheels turning.
And because they are both very, very busy with 4 kids, they need to leave at 3 o'clock. So please excuse them. They're going to need to leave at that point in time. But we've got them in the first part of the presentation so they can share with you a little bit about their experiences. But fabulous to have them on the task force. Don Mark, principal at Skyview, and Obadiah Denham, principal at Leota Junior High.
And maybe a quick go around the table just for their benefits.
Sure, I'm Amy Katz. I'm on school board. Sandy Hayes, and I'm on the school board.
Donna McCravey, school board.
Kimberly D'Angelo, school board.
Carolyn.
Jeff, we've met.
Janet from school board.
Very good. That's well.
All right, so this is our mission statement. We're going to dig into that in a little more detail in a couple slides. So I'm just going to forward from that. We meet once monthly from 5 to 7. We had a meeting last night, actually, so it was a good meeting. We met our outcomes and got some great work done last night, and which is what I feel we do every month. This group is phenomenal. They probe, they ask questions, they dig, they research, they dialogue. They're not afraid to speak up. And that's what we need, because we're really talking about a major systemic change from what we currently do in junior highs to middle schools. And what are those core pillars and tenets that we want to make sure happen for North Shore Middle School. So it's a fantastic group. I did mention at the last meeting in February that with the amount of work that's on our docket, I thought we might need to meet twice a month. I didn't hear any feedback on that. So we'll see how that goes. But we are parceling some things out to subcommittees, recognizing that we need input and feedback from subcommittee groups that then will report back to the larger. The research. So you have your book there right in front of you. And I know some of you said you.
Yes.
I think you now have the book if you didn't get it before.
That's
That's not my stuff. Sorry. You got our stuff. You got all yours? Okay, sorry. So we started doing research right away on middle schools and middle level education. And we looked at This We Believe, which is the blue book in front of you, which is the National Middle Level Association, really is the founding father, if you will, of middle schools in the United States. They've been around for 30 plus years. So much of our work has focused around that core text. We also looked at Turning Points, which was another reform effort in late 90s, early 2000. And then of course in a national, it should be NASSP, National Association of Secondary School Principals, also has research on breaking ranks in the middle, essential attributes of middle school. So we dug into all of the research. We landed on utilizing This We Believe as our guiding principles and our core text. So the middle school task force has read that inside and out. In fact, we referred to it last night. You know, it's always go back to the research, pull out the book, what does it say about what we should be doing in middle schools. Our mission statement was also created based on the work in This We Believe. We visited local districts. We've been to Everett, Federal Way, Issaquah, Lake Washington, Bellevue have been the districts we've looked at so far. We've had different groups and teams go out and ask questions and come back. And then we are probably gonna have to go do some additional work, because as you dig in further, you have more questions. So we know that our work is just beginning there. Surrounding school master schedules. We're beginning to look at a master schedule and what will this middle school schedule look like. If you remember in high school, I talked about a block schedule. So we're starting to really dig in with what would be middle school schedule for North Shore. So we are spending time looking at many school district master schedules. The AMLE conference, we've had the good fortune to be able, I've gone 3 years in a row now, and we were able to take part of the task force in 2013, and Jackie was able to join us. And then in 2014, we took another portion of the task force, plus many teachers. We had 25 of us that traveled to Nashville, and Susan was able to join us. And then we're looking forward to taking the last part of the task force and additional teachers next October to Columbus. But I've asked Susan and Jackie to share a little bit about their experiences as a parent sitting on the task force and from what they've learned and gained from the national conferences. So, Jackie, I think you're up first.
Well, first of all, I'm not apologizing, but I wish that was okay for me to come in sweats today. Because I was like, oh, it's okay, because I have girls on the run right after this at Maywood. So anyway, that's why I'm dressed like this today. But I felt really privileged to be able to be selected to go to the 2013 conference. I actually was, I'm not only a parent, but I was also a teacher for 14 years. And one of my assignments was to go with the 6th grade up to the middle school when Renton was doing their big changeover. That was like 14 years ago. I'm aging myself. Anyway, but, and I've told these guys that was probably my most memorable. I loved teaching in middle school, and I loved what they did there. So anyway, it was fun for me to go to the conference, and I think Heather asked us to talk about what we kind of took away from there. I think the first thing I did when I sat down at my first conference or whatever you go and listen to is the acronyms. They have changed. And I had to wrap myself around just the acronyms and the vocabulary and really get, because it's so much different than 14 years ago when I was there. So, and I think what I pulled out of that is we've become such more intentional about what we're doing. Like, one of the words that was not a buzzword when I was teaching is differentiation, but boy, we tried to do it in our classes, and but they're so intentional about it now, and just the interventions and all of that, that I really, I loved hearing about that. Resoundingly, what I took away from there is middle schools are about promoting social, personal, emotional growth, and it's meaningful beyond academics, and I think that's just hugely important when we go to middle schools. And I went and listened to one that was on Meaningful Middle School. It was a school out of Santa Barbara, or Santa Monica, excuse me. I listened to a school, it was a STEM school, listened to them speak about that, and I also listened to a middle school, and they talked about how RTI and gifted fits in within that. But listening to all those differences, what was really resounding for me was that they're all trying to reach a common goal, and that's the social, personal, emotional growth, but they all do it differently and it looks differently. And so I think that that's what I took away from there. It was just really fun to listen to all the different things that are going on, but again, bringing it back to North Shore, we're a different place. Like the school in Santa Monica, they were 50% non-Caucasian and 65% on some kind of aid. So what their school looked like was a lot different than probably what some of our schools are going to look like, but they have a common goal surrounded with the characteristics that we talked about in the books that we've been reading and researching. So and then also my other thing that I pulled away from it was just the differentiation, and that's something I really look at as a teacher. We have a lot of different ways to meet different kids' needs, but we've started to talk about heterogeneous grouping and stuff in our classrooms, and so I don't know, I'm really interested and intrigued by that and how we're going to meet the needs of all learners going into middle school, so that's what I took.
How did it look different than you envision our schools looking? How did that school look different?
Well, I can't, specifically they approached it, and it might not. I think what that school did is their focus was on, it was very student-centered. They had a lot of portfolio assessment. Their outcome was a portfolio from all of the students, and that's how they approached it. And they, I think that just probably because some of those kids were high need and there was a lot of diversity, that they had approached it a little differently. And again, demographically, I'm not really dialed in with all of North Shore schools, but I know just where I live and in our demographic, it's going to look maybe a little different. I don't know, maybe not. Maybe we'll approach the same goal doing the same thing. That's not something
When they came out with the, I've already lost the word, the portfolio, how did that compare to the state testing, or was it compared to that?
I think it was
Or
a
was it
school,
including that?
yeah, it was their school
Included that?
assessment, yeah, yeah. They did a lot of
School-based
things.
decision making.
Okay.
So I guess my main goal is that it looks differently in different schools, but the commonality of the goals they're trying to reach in terms of personal growth and that kind of thing are the same.
Susan, we'll let you go, 2014 and.
Certainly. So, yeah, I really enjoyed the conference. I had no background in education. So for me, everything was new. All the acronyms were new. I was constantly like, can you explain Loopy? Can you explain this? But it was so great to not only attend the sessions, which were fabulous, but just connect with teachers from all over the country, some from Canada I met, and administrators, and see, you know, what was working with them, what their challenges were, and how supportive they were of our process, which was really, it was fun. They just were always coming up with ideas for me. So, but the sessions, and I felt like a student, well, I was a student myself, so I could really relate to these middle school students and sitting there like, so much information, you know, how do you process all the information that's coming at you in, what, 3 days that we were there or whatever, so. Anyway, so I went to several sessions that were really good. And one of the resounding themes was the why we are doing middle school as opposed to the junior high. And it's to meet the needs of these kids aged 11 to 15, which are very, very unique and very diverse, really. So, and another theme that was common was everyone was grounded in this We Believe, which is such a small, thin book. You think, gosh, is this really useful? It really, really is. It's amazing. And schools around the country, that's the successful ones, the ones that are really like, this is working for our kids, use this We Believe. And the focus on the student was another big theme. And relationships. So one session I went to just really said everything you need to do needs to focus on building the relationships and having a positive school climate. So fostering the adult-to-adult relationships within your school and making sure teachers and administrators are supportive of each other. The adult to student, so whether it's a teacher or an advisor or whoever, and then the student to others. And really the whole idea of that is that the adults are the role models for the students, and that's what we're trying to teach. It's not just the academics, but it's about the social and how we want these students to relate to each other and other people. So that was a big theme. And another one, big eye-opener for me is, in these sessions, is a lot of people talk that the middle school is more like elementary than high school. And that was a big eye-opener for me because I have 2 girls right now in junior high, and it is a little high school, that's what it is. And so it's, what we're talking about is a big cultural shift. And so if people think that, I think that would really help a lot of parents, especially I'm thinking from a parent perspective because a lot of parents are confused at this point. So that really is going to be more like an elementary school in fostering those, you know, relationships and such. So. A couple of things just really quickly is that the electives are really essential to the middle school concept, and having them be exploratory, meaning that the kids can try out. Some schools do like a 3-week session or a 6-week session as opposed to a semester session like we do now. So, and really fostering their sense of needing to explore, needing to try things, needing to see what works with them and doesn't work with them. So that's a key thing. So
If they did a class, because I think that's key. I remember getting in drama and thinking I'd like it and hating it, and then you're stuck for the whole semester. Do they put like 3, I mean, you might not know this, but do they put like 3 or 4 classes together then? Like you can choose drama and then, and then this, and then you get the grade, or is it just you get a grade every 3 weeks?
So what's sometimes common is, like in the district I used to be in, the elective was in a 4-series rotation. So it was 4 quarters.
I see.
So every student would cycle through
Would
all
cycle through
4
that,
quarters. So
okay.
there'd be maybe perhaps a technology component, maybe a drama component, and then they would.
What a great concept though.
I know like Washington does that at a couple of their schools,
Really
and I
good
can't remember
concept.
which schools they do it at, but maybe Redmond, middle, I can't remember, but there's a lot of schools in the area that do, sometimes they call it exploratory wheel or something of that nature. Yeah, so anyways, that was something that came up quite a bit. And then lastly, a really interesting session I went to was a school in Ohio, a district in Ohio. And they really kind of took the whole Google concept of treating their school district as a business and really did some really crazy stuff. So, but it was cool because it was really student driven. So what as you as students would like to see. So something to think about. So, and I'm sure that school will come up at the Columbus conference because it's in Ohio.
Yes.
So yeah, they're,
Can you give us an example of what you saw in those?
One example is they kind of did a choice school for high school and middle school where the kids would get pulled out for a couple periods a day, and they had like a recording studio. They had the kids paint the whole place. They had, so just it was a bunch of things where they could try different things and really custom to their own. It wasn't like they're sitting in chairs in a classroom, it was interactive. A lot of presentations, a lot of robotics, hands-on, so anyways, it was really interesting because they really treated it as, it's a business and we're competing, we're losing our kids to private schools, we're losing our kids to other districts, and how do we want to retain our kids and do the best thing for them too. So that was a really cool presentation, really different, so that's all.
Do you have any questions of Susan or Jackie? They're gonna stay till 3, but if I wanted to give you a chance to ask them questions now, if you have anything that you wanted to check in with the parents on?
I do have a couple of questions. One is just more broadly, as you're in conversation with your peers, other parents, what is the response to some of what you're sharing with them about what you've learned about middle schools?
I haven't had too many people ask me. I know other people have, but it's not something that, I think more people I have in our small community have kids that are, mine are not, but in the gifted program, so they're really concerned about how that's all gonna play out, and where they're gonna be, and what school they're gonna go to. I don't think, because there hasn't been a lot of information out there yet, I don't think there's a lot of questions yet. I don't know if they know what to ask yet.
I've had a lot of questions because I have 2 kids in junior high right now, and so a lot of them are we going to do a block schedule? Are the same teachers going to teach the same grades? What's going to happen to the 9th grade party? What's going to happen to the web program? I mean, they're really important to the kids and to the parents. They hold on to that stuff very tightly. So
The 8th and 9th grade party.
yeah, so well, yeah,
Right, 2 parties now.
Exactly. Yeah, are the electives going to be the same? Are there going to be after school sports still? So I get lots of questions.
Very detailed questions.
Yeah, I mean, if you have kids in junior high, you're wondering, and you have younger kids, are your younger kids going to be doing the same thing?
So one of the activities we did last night in reference to your question too is we have 3 parent information nights scheduled for May to begin to dialogue and have conversation around middle schools, and we brainstormed as a task force. We spent 5 to 10 minutes on what are the things we think parents are going to ask and want to know, and then we'll be starting to craft our plan for that evening of what information do we want to share, and then how do we want to engage them in dialogue around middle schools.
The other question was kind of, I think what you were referring to when you're saying heterogeneous groups. And we have, over the last few years, moved to the challenge, the self-select challenge, which according to this book is not really part of their model for middle school. And so I'm just kind of wondering what the conversation is and how do you protect the learning for the ones who are advanced, and how, just what's that conversation like in your group? Because I imagine that's a big topic.
So you guys certainly can add it. It is further in our presentation. It is part of our work ahead, and we did spend, was it our February meeting? Our meeting prior, we read about 5 to 6 articles on heterogeneous groupings, the gifted, connected to different research groups, and realize that it's a big topic here in North Shore and it deserves a subcommittee. So I will speak to that a little bit further on.
Okay.
So unless there's
Yeah,
anything
no,
else.
that's fine, thanks.
Anything else for the parents?
Are you guys finding, so I have a daughter that's going to be going into the 6th grade, and honestly, I, as a parent, don't like it in the sense of, as a board member, I love it. But as a parent, I'm nervous about it because I haven't had this model. So, so do you guys hear that from other parents, and what information do you have to give a parent like me, not as a board member, to alleviate kind of my concerns and fears that, you know, she's too young to go into a junior high teenage setting in the 6th grade? And
I think, and again, I was not a parent when I went to this 6th grade. I am now, and I can look back on it, but some of the concerns I would have as a parent now with my child going in there, I think it's the whole transition process and what we're going to do as a district to make those families and those kids feel comfortable. Because from what I remember, the 6th graders that I taught were this big and the 8th graders were this big. So common concerns would be, you know, for the average parent, I guess, would be, you know, is my 6th grader going to be mixing in with the 8th graders, or how is the physical setup of the school going to be? I mean, we're obviously not going to build new schools. So, yeah, I don't know, and, you know, my experiences with the kids, we had teams, and, you know, I don't know what we're going to do here, but those 6th graders were pretty well, unless they were traveling to exploratory or doing something like that, they really didn't. It was great. It was fun. I mean, you know, sometimes I was more concerned when I was in the high school about 9th graders in the high school, but 6th graders in the middle school, I thought they did very well, and I thought, you know, a lot of those concerns were alleviated by the transition process and how intentional they were about making families and kids feel comfortable.
do you hear anything from your, because you have kids in
Yeah, and I would agree with that. I think the transition process is going to be key, and I would just say it is. I mean, I think it will be more like an elementary than a high school, so it'll be different than what's happening with the current junior high, and the kids will have fun. I mean, I think as a parent, I'm for sure will have more anxiety than my child will, because you know how kids are. They go in there and they're fine.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's okay.
Oh, I think
But,
the
you
kids
know,
are excited.
Yeah, they'll be fine, they'll be fine, so. And there was, who was it that was at the meeting last night? That was the gal that said that she went through the same process in Lake Washington.
Oh,
Shannon.
Yeah, she said it was great, so,
Yeah.
yeah, as a parent, so she, somebody who talked to that, she went through that transition with her child as a 6th grader, so.
Just keep the 8th grade boys away from her.
Well, it's fairly typical in middle schools. I mean, you're right, our junior highs weren't built as middle schools, but it's fairly typical that 6th grade might be a little bit more segregated from the rest of the school. I mean, geographically.
Yeah.
Just where they position the classrooms, the teaching teams, all of that will keep them a little bit, perhaps more cloistered than the rest of the building.
All right, how about if we move on, and then feel free to ask questions as you have been. So, Opie's going to dig more into the mission statement.
Sure. So as a task force, one of our first things that we did was try to create a mission statement that allowed us to filter through a lot of these questions. So when the questions come up around heterogeneous grouping, or what type of bell schedule to have, or do we have advisory or not have advisory, or any of those other things that are coming at us, we could root ourselves back in something that helped us anchor back and say, okay, where are we missing out, or where are we forgetting something, or we got everything covered. And so where we went to that was ultimately we ended up landing in this we believe, after we, as Heather said, looked at a bunch of different pieces, and those 4 kind of words or statements there that are highlighted are what really is kind of the anchor piece for us. So if you looking at
And you have this handout too, a separate handout.
yeah, in your text, you'll see those words up here right there too. And so this idea of being challenging, equitable, empowering, and development responsive. And so the first thing we did as a task force is identify that those made sense, and we really rooted into those and said, we really understand what those words mean, so that we can use kind of common vocabulary when we're coming around our work around it. And then as we're communicating it out, when we go and meet with in our schools, predominantly in our schools, and we're working with schools, or we go meet the parent groups, so that we're meeting with the elementary teachers, the junior high teachers, or anybody that we can really say, okay, this is where we're anchored in, this is where we're building from. So that mission statement's kind of served as a guide for us, and then allow us to kind of come back to it with those kind of terms. And we're going to go through each of those terms and kind of share with you. what it means, and this, we've kind of captured what developmentally responsive means.
That's kind of genius.
If you just had like maybe 5 in a row, that's exactly the same thing, that would be depicted a little more.
Yeah. And so for developmentally responsive, if you go to, and you don't need this now, but if you want to kind of dig into, and this is where we get in the work, digging in with staff, and where we went into task forces on pages 57 through 62 of your book, they really talk about that piece, and what they identify in there is psychological, social, emotional, cognitive, intellectual, moral, and physical development, and what each one of those pieces mean. And if you think about this age group, I think Jackie mentioned, or maybe Susan, this idea of being 11 to 15. So there's a lot of stuff we're learning that's going on with the brain right now and with the body, and there's so much that's changing. And, it's impossible for the kid to understand it, much less the adults that have experienced it and are kind of witnessing it from the outside and really understand what's going on. So creating a system that allows us to respond to those needs and in a healthy way that builds those kids up so that when they get to the next levels and when they ultimately leave our system, that they're ready to kind of move forward. A quote from page 28 just really kind of speaks to that we as leaders, whether it's you guys, school board members, us as administration in the building, or our SDLTs, and we're kind of rooting them in this too, is really what does it mean to understand those pages, and really then how do we create a system that supports students that are going through that, and really kind of, and there's so much that's coming out and understanding. So one is being able to respond to where they are developmentally. And then the next piece is we know that, from our own experience with kids at this age, we know that they're beginning to think they know it all. And so, and you got to build on that. That's brain development, and that's where they think they are. So we can fight it or we can work with it. And so empowering them to make decisions in a healthy way through goal setting, through self-assessing, through reflecting in the classrooms, through kind of going back and look at these places. How do we empower them to basically be self-advocates? And so that's kind of what that empowering is. How do we make them self-advocates in a healthy way, in a way that's controlled in the environment that we can take them through that cognitive development and help them think through it, so then when they get somewhere else and they have to make some decisions, they're ready to do it, hopefully in a safe and healthy way. So really, when you look at these 4 terms we're going to go through, it's really talking about how do we wrap around the entire child and make sure the whole child is really ready to go on to the next level. And that's really in a nutshell what middle school's about too, is really coming together around the whole child and understanding where they're at and responding to them where they're at, not where we think they should be or we wish they were, and that's honestly from day to day.
Dawn, you've got the next 2.
So the third of the 4 essential attributes is challenging. And with that, we want to engage students with substantive issues and skills that are geared to their level of understanding and empower them to take control of their learning. I was just picture taking control. So to do this, we use curriculum and instruction as our tools to be able to achieve the goals and objectives of our individual schools, which is to have high expectations for learning for all students. So when we look at how do we do that when we have a broad range of developmental and cultural diversity with our students, how we look at meeting their level of understanding in the classroom, differentiation becomes a very powerful tool for us for diversification and individualization. So helping students to grapple and master difficult concepts and challenges at their level, and to do that with a variety of students within one class is the goal with differentiation. And also at the same time, in doing that, we want to engage kids in the types of things that they're interested in. They're very interested at this age in societal issues. So how do we use that as a tool to engage them in challenging constructs? When we talk about equitable, our 4th attribute, when we have differentiation, when we have diversified and individualized content and instruction, teachers then can offer choice between the activities for students because there's a variety of options for students. And we know at this age providing choice is extremely important because we're empowering them to be individuals and being able to make those choices for themselves. So providing challenges for every student at their individual ability and readiness
can be done in a variety of ways. We can do that through independent study, we can do it through small group work, enrichment experiences. There's a variety of things that teachers can do within the classroom through differentiation to create an equitable classroom for all students that's still challenging. So part of what helps us do this, to be able to be successful with differentiation and avoid the negative effects of academic tracking, is to try to create smaller learning communities for students. And so often we see in middle schools teams that are created, or houses, which allow you to replicate the socioeconomic diversity, academic diversity, cultural diversity of the school, only you're shrinking it down into smaller groups where relationships can be built and students have an adult advocate that's working with them through a larger chunk of time, so those relationships help support them. So we create these positive learning environments where we have differentiation that's ensuring that every student meets their potential within the classroom.
So those are the 4 core essential attributes. If you go back to that chart there, you can see that those 4 that are on the left-hand side really are the core of our mission statement, and again, everything is reflected back through those 4. I just mentioned, when we talk about the high school, and we're doing this because it connects. If it doesn't connect, then we shouldn't probably be looking at it. So important considerations. Here is the list of some of the things that we have touched on and focused on and had at least a conversation about. We've delved into many of them more deeply than others. And then the last bullet is "and," because there's always more things that come up, it seems like. But this list is just a comprehensive look at what we talk about as a task force, what we're focused on, and what we know we need to have recommendations on prior to 2017, and many of them within the next 6 to 8 months to 12 months. So our work, we have work ahead that we need to do. We'll touch on a couple of these a little more in depth than others because we've done some of the work already, and we have subcommittees in place. So I think, is there any that you have questions on in that list, or I can always come back to it later once we get through some of the focus areas?
So just as a parent and a board member, that was really good information for me. So again, you guys might have already done this, but putting this out to the community when we start talking about it, because this is amazing to know these are the cornerstones and how it could.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. Yeah. So back to that list. So one of the important key pillars of middle school is teaming. You heard it referenced in some of the conversations Jackie and Susan learned from the conference, and the task force has been delving into teaming, and so Dawn's going to touch base a little bit more on what teaming could look like at the middle school and then where our work's headed.
And when we look at how can we combine those 4 attributes, challenging, equitable, empowering, developmentally responsive, and create a school where those can happen together, there's 2 kind of critical elements that AMLE talks about in the book. One is the concept of team, and there's 4 different types of teams we can talk about that are essential to the schoolhouse. One is content area teams, which we're already doing in our schools. And a content area team is when you have, say, we're both 8th grade math teachers, and so we're a team and we're working together on our content. We're looking at the curriculum, we're looking at our instruction, we're looking at student assessments and how they do it. And then we're readjusting our instruction the next day based on the learning of our students the previous day. So we're closely working together on the progress of our students within our content area. Another name for that is PLCs, which you may have heard us talk about, and we're doing work with K-Hall this year, and our staff already in all of our buildings are using our early release collaborative Wednesdays to do a lot of our PLC work. So we've had tremendous growth this year at all of the junior highs with this, and a lot of positive feedback from our staff. They're very excited about it and are using the model. Then we also have grade level teams, which we've had traditionally, and that's where a lot of the affective work goes with students, when all the 7th grade teachers get together and say, 7th graders need more help with organization, we really should focus on using the planner with all of them, and how do we do that consistently in every 7th grade class? And then we have student teams also that are functioning in our junior highs, and that's when we are teaching our students intentionally how to be effective collaborators, and then we have challenging projects for them to do where they practice those collaboration skills together with one another. And the last one, we'll go ahead to the next slide for interdisciplinary teams. Now this will be a new concept for us, and folks are very excited about it. In fact, the task force last night was unanimous in their support for it. They said
It was so exciting.
It was. It was great. Everybody came together and loved it. So we've been studying this for a while. So the concept with an interdisciplinary team, you may already be aware of this, but it can look different in different schools. It could be just a English and a social studies teacher who team together. It could be an English, social studies, science teacher who team together. And then the math team might team as one group. But you create an interdisciplinary team, and they share a block of time. So instead of me having kids first period and they all leave and they go to you second period and they all leave and they go to you third period, we just share that block between us, and we share those students between us. And we have a little bit of freedom and flexibility within that to do differentiation the way it needs to be done. So let's say there's some kids who need some remediation. I can be working with the remediation, while the kids who need some enrichment might be working with you. For the kids, we decide one day we're just going to do project-based learning that day, and we share our students on the interdisciplinary project that we've created together. So it gives flexibility for teachers to look at where students are and meet them where they are, being able to flex the curriculum instruction within these large chunks of time teaming together. Which means homework is integrated as well.
Homework?
Yes, definitely. Especially if they're doing a project that's an integrated project. So we call that basically, it's called a flexible schedule. And what's flexible is we may decide some days we do need to see our kids separately. They are going to come see me for English, and they'll come see you for social studies, and they'll come see you for science. But then there might be a week where we decide we're going to pull them together and do a project, or we might do a field trip together. So we have that flexibility to adjust based on the students' needs. So doing debates and mock trials and community-based service projects, all these become a possibility for our team. And we know these students well because we're sharing them. Another advantage to this is the fact that we have now a whole group of people who are wrapped around the student, instead of the student just having separate individual autonomous folks who might not be keyed into their needs day to day. So having this flexibility for individual students, being able to enrich and remediate and differentiate, allows us to be able to do the 4 pillars within it, within developmentally responsive middle school.
So one of the questions that we get asked often from our school staff and from parents, Susan, you mentioned it, what's the